Hi guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the video series about sourcing gemstones. I'm really excited about this one. It's been made in a collaboration with incredible jewelry makers and artists, and enjoy watching. But before you proceed, remember to subscribe to this channel to support next videos and collaborations like that. It's incredibly helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I'm really excited for this video. Enjoy watching. Oh, all of the artists will be linked in the description box below, and they will be also at the end of the video, so don't worry, you will be able to find them, and yeah, enjoy watching. What is the most important factor for you when buying the stone? What do you look for? Particular features, shape, or type of the gem? I look for quality, shape, general look of the stone. Are the colors rich? Is the matrix intriguing? Are there any surface fractures? Is it natural or stabilized with glue, other finishes? Is it thick enough for the bezel I want to use? Too thick? Is it fragile? Etc. I tend to gravitate towards oval and teardrop shapes, as well as stones with vibrant colors and vivid polychrome. For me, the most important factor when buying a stone varies greatly based on what my theme or overall goal is for a particular project or collection. If I had to narrow it down to just a handful, I would say I tend to favor the material origin, the rarity of it, how they are cut and polished, so the shape, and who cut them. Hayley says, "The majority of my work is seasonal, that is, inspired by what the natural world is doing or preparing to do at any given minute. So for the most part, I try to look for stones that capture a feeling, texture or pattern that I'm also seeing outdoors. I, of course, have materials I gravitate towards, such as turquoise and picture jasper, but I try not to limit myself to just what I know. If something grabs my attention, I tend to just leap." Karolien answers, "It depends on why I buy the stone. If I'm looking for a diamond for a wedding ring, I look for quality, because it is for the rest of her life. If I look for a stone I want to create a unique design around, I mostly like unusual stones that speak to my imagination." Joe answers, "Oh, so many things, size, shape, color, etc. Sometimes when I'm sourcing a particular stone, I end up buying something completely different. I am a go with your gut girl. I'm a bit of a magpie, but in the 11 years of buying, I've learned what works for me and what doesn't. That doesn't mean I don't like to buy something different, but I'm primarily drawn to color before shape." Do you buy the stone with the design in your mind, or does the design develop once you have the gem? Laura says, "Most of the time I purchase larger gems that are beautiful and inspiring, knowing that a design will come to mind after I've added it to my collection. When it comes to designs I replicate over and over, studs or my mountain maven ear jackets, I purchase a large amount of calibrated stones for the sole purpose of incorporating them into that specific design. I don't usually purchase stones and use them right away, so I guess nothing ever really has the purpose until later down the road when I start pulling stones out of my trays. Usually when that happens, I already have a design in mind and I'm scanning my trays for the perfect stone. Essentially, I think it's easier to buy stones that you like, keep them, and graze your collection while you're planning for new work. Trying to source a stone during the design process can be frustrating." I think it's a little of both. For the most part, I have imagery in my head drawn from my observations of the natural world that serves as a basis for what I create, but it's all loose and fluid until I find my stone. So, for example, I might be thinking about spring blossoms, which guides me to look for pink or white stones, and the minute I find a stone that embodies that half-formed idea in my mind, I immediately know what the rest of my design will look like. I only go to a gemstone store whenever I need stones for my customers, like for an engagement or wedding ring, but whenever I'm there I always buy more stones than what I need. So when I buy stones for a custom order, the design is there, most of the time the ring is already completed, I just have to set the stone. But then I see something else and I just fall in love with a stone. Then I have no idea what to do with it, or I might see a stone and imagine a piece of jewelry right there, so I always bring my sketchbook. Sometimes I'm looking for a particular stone or a shape because I have a design in mind, but I also buy because the stone has called to me, literally. I have stones I hoard and stones I use the minute they arrive. It's very much a feeling. How do you choose your seller? What I mean here is if you look for local sellers or prefer international, fair trade or any other specific aspect. I love gem shows, especially those in Tucson or the larger ones that come to the US East Coast. When it comes to gem shows, I usually do it based on quality of product with fair pricing, displayed in a way that shows the seller takes pride and cares for their stones. When it comes to turquoise, I buy American mined, high-grade, natural stones, usually cut by the miners or mine owners themselves, as direct from the ground to the jewelry as I can get. I choose my sellers by location. I don't use a wide array of materials in my work or else I'd have to purchase internationally. Most of the material I really scout for is mined in Oregon, Arkansas, Washington and of course the American Southwest where hundreds of turquoise mines live. Since these mines are located in the US, they are mostly capped by lapidary artists in the US. If I do use any materials that aren't mined in the US, I at least look for it to be cut by a skilled lapidary artist inside the US. I like to keep it small and I like to support other independent artists. I also think the quality is better that way. I've also purchased some stones from skilled lapidary artists in the UK. I have purchased most of my stones from sellers on Etsy, though I've made a few purchases from eBay too. For the most part, I like to buy from sellers who are already in the US, as I found the quality to be consistently better and I hate waiting for the packages to arrive. But for the right stone, I'm happy to order internationally. I also prefer to buy stones from sellers who are doing the cutting themselves instead of those who are reselling stones. The lapidary artists tend to put so much more care into their stones, and that attention to detail makes a huge difference in quality. Over time, I found a few sellers that I return to again and again, but in the beginning I'd look at all of the listings a seller had available. If the stone I was interested in was the only one that looked to be well cut or polished, then that would make me a little suspicious. If, however, the seller had many good stones, I might order one or two. That way I'd be able to see quality with my own eyes without making a huge investment. If the stones looked good in person, then I'd likely go back to that seller again in the future. I can't buy gemstones online. I did that once and it just doesn't work for me. I buy them from a local company, but I'm very privileged to live so close to Antwerp, the capital of diamonds, so I have lots of choice, but to me it is important to see the stones, to know where they come from and to have a good feeling of the company and trust the people I buy from. I look for a company that is helpful and friendly and gives me advice, and at the same time delivers stones that have the best quality. I tend to buy my labradorite and moonstones from overseas purely because I have found they have the better stones. I also look for price because of course it has to mean my jewelry is still at an attainable price for my customers. I do like to use UK sellers for some of my stones, though especially my smaller pieces. I'm not keen on auctions, I just like to buy what I see. Do you go to gem shows, and which ones do you like best? Can you recommend any gem shows in your area? I love the Tucson gem shows. There are so many going on at the same time, and you can find pretty much everything you're looking for in one place and in one weekend. I like to stock up on most of my inventory on these trips. I also have gone to the International Gem and Jewelry Show here in Massachusetts, and I know they travel around a ton. Just googling gem shows in my area and checking out websites of each show can give you a great idea of what shows have what you're looking for. I have never been to a big gem show. I have gone to Tucson for the gem show 3 times now and hope to visit the Denver Gem and Mineral Show this year. The Jogs show in Tucson is a particular favorite. When I lived in the San Francisco area, I also visited the Gem Fair a couple of times. That particular show had mostly beads, which are not particularly useful to my work, but a couple great cabochon sellers as well. At all of the shows, I spend a lot of time picking through materials that are not particularly relevant to my work in order to uncover the really special stones. I really love this process. It's half the fun. It's also invaluable to be able to see the stones in person to judge their quality. No, I did that while I was studying. It is just too much for me, to be honest. I already feel overwhelmed at a local company. If there is too much choice, I might end up not buying anything. Probably the only downside to living in Cornwall, I am so far away from a gem show. Probably a good thing money-wise, though, but one day I will get to one. Have you had any interesting, good or bad experiences when buying gemstones? For example, I bought some chrysocolla beads once. They looked so real and I was inexperienced to tell the difference. But when I spotted a fingerprint on one of them, I knew. I broke one with pliers and obviously they were fake. When I started metalsmithing, I knew very little about stones and where to purchase them, and went primarily to Etsy and eBay to purchase cabochons. Most of the time I had good experiences, but there were several instances where the stone was a very different color that pictured due to poor lighting in the photograph, or had a hairline or surface fracture that was nearly impossible to see in the photos. I prefer to purchase in person now for these reasons. I don't use moonstone or labradorite in my work because they are always a huge letdown. I've purchased many over the years, and when buying that type of material online, you just can't see what it really looks like. I would save those types of stones for in-person purchasing only. I haven't ever had any really bad experiences buying stones, but it might be my mindset to some extent. I guess I assume that some of the online purchases I make won't end up being what I imagine in terms of color, size or quality. For me, that's just part of the gamble I make when buying without actually seeing the stone. I've learned quite a few lessons along the way from stones that didn't work out. For example, I will no longer purchase turquoise online if it shows any signs of pitting in the surface, because at one point early on, I purchased several stones from different sellers with pitting that cracked and crumbled when I tried to work with them. Had I seen them in person, it would have been obvious that the material was chalky and soft. By going back and taking a second look at the photos in the listings, I was able to make note of what that low-grade turquoise looked like, and have since been able to avoid buying stones with that problem. I've also purchased many poorly cut cabochons with curved backs or uneven edges that made them hard to set. I now look for stones that seem carefully and evenly cut, and will sometimes ask sellers for more pictures before making a purchase. It still happens sometimes that I end up with stones that are cut in less than ideal manner, but I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with modifying these stones with grinders and sandpaper to make them stable. All of this is to say, I have made some bad stones purchases, but they were all low investment, and I choose to see them as big opportunities for learning. All of this to say, I have made some bad stone purchases, but they were all low investment, and I choose to see them as big opportunities for learning. It wasn't fun in the moment, but these experiences have helped to make me a more savvy stone shopper. Buying diamonds in Antwerp for the first time felt kind of like an adventure. All buildings are super complicated, guards and police everywhere. I didn't know what company to trust and where to go, so I was very happy that an older, more experienced goldsmith took me along. Oh hell yes, too big, too small, nothing like a photo. But the more savvy I got with buying, the better I have got. One advice you'd give others on buying the stones: quality over quantity. If you're crafting jewelry with the intention of it lasting a lifetime, be sure your stones can stand the test of time too. Spending more money on a stone from a reputable source is worth the investment. In the long run, you won't deal with unlevel backing, uneven height, and/or the possibility of fake material being sold as the real thing. The way I try to find a reputable source is by looking for small independent lapidary artists who actually love doing what they do. You'll know they are honest and not in business just to make as much money as possible, like the India manufacturing shops. Also, your stone knowledge will grow over time. Don't expect to be an expert right away. Chances are you will purchase faked material at least once or twice. You'll learn from it. I think that the best advice I could give is that if a stone's price seems too good to be true, then it probably is. Inexpensive stones can seem like a good buy in the moment, but quality cut stones are easier to work with and help you to create more beautiful and meaningful work, so they are worth the extra money. It's always better to have a handful of quality stones than a whole box of subpar ones that won't stand the test of time or do justice to your work. Something I would recommend to everyone: find someone else who is more experienced to go to buy gemstones together. Oh, and don't be afraid to ask questions. There is so much to learn about gemstones that unless you have some degree in gemology, you actually almost don't know anything, and that is totally normal, and that is also the reason why it's so important to trust the company you buy from. One of the courses I had while studying jewelry design was gemology, and it taught me just enough to know that I don't know anything. If buying online, sit with a ruler. Make sure you know what size you're buying. Don't be afraid to ask the seller questions or for more photos. If buying from overseas, be patient with shipping and only pay via PayPal just in case there is a problem. Is there anything extra you'd like to share with us that wasn't in the question? When purchasing stones from vendors, take time to get to know the vendors. Ask them about their product, where it came from, etc. Be kind and personable, and get to know them as people, not just someone to be transactional with. Developing relationships with suppliers not only ensures you have good buying experience, it also helps you network, create friendships, and maybe even get better prices. I love going back to vendors I have a relationship with each year in Tassen and catching up while shopping. It enriches both their time and yours. I once bought lots of stones. Okay, they were not that expensive, but still, for a guy that wanted to order a custom-made engagement ring. In the end, he didn't buy a ring at all, so I had lots of stones that I bought, but no return on investment. And some of these stones actually didn't fit my own style, so I didn't know what to do with them. So that might be also a great tip. Only buy stones if you are sure you'll use them, even if the customer changes his or her mind and you end up keeping the stones. What I love about gemstones is that they bring color to a design, since working with silver and gold is limited in colors, of course, and this is very inspiring. Try to source stones that you like, that fit in with your style. Don't follow the trends just because they seem to be selling. Buying stones, especially online, seems to be a bit of a minefield, so hunt around, buy small initially, and see what you think before putting a lot of cash on lots from a new sellers. If buying from a lot, where you buy a collection of stones for one price, expect that maybe only 75% will be usable to you. Often 1 or 2 will be heavily included or cracked. Would you like to share some suppliers with us? And again, Lara says, I love Village Silversmith so much. They are a family business that's passionate about what they do, and they are overall amazing people. I love seeing them at each show and always have a great time chatting with them and picking up the most beautiful gems. They have an incredible spread and selection of cabochons, beads and wrought gems I've seen, and have something for everyone. They sell online via Instagram at Village Silversmith Caps, as well as at trade shows and Tassen. I cannot recommend them enough. Right, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Again, like the video, subscribe, and comment below what you think about this. If there's anything that was left out, that you would like to know, also ask questions and I will try to get back to you and answer them. And other than that, stay tuned for the part 3, the last part, where I will actually share all of the sellers that I was able to collect and make a list for you to make your life easier. Right, thanks so much, take care and see you again. Bye.